Coming up, Dustin West and Holly Forde take us on a tour of overlooked Animal Kingdom. You're going to learn lots of things you never knew about that park. Coming up next. This is the Diz Unplugged, episode 590 for the week of March 26th, 2013. The Diz Unplugged is brought to you by DreamsUnlimitedTravel.com, experts in helping you plan the perfect Disney vacation. One great reason to use Dreams Unlimited is because your husband is fat, your kids won't stop screaming, and your job sucks. You have your hands full. Planning a vacation in Disney World isn't always easy. So let one of our amazing agents, who also have fat husbands and screaming kids, but a wonderful boss, plan it for you. They'll help you decide where to stay, where to eat, what to avoid, and all for no extra charge. That's right, you'll pay Dreams Unlimited the same price you'd pay Disney, except Dreams will give you a whole lot more help in planning your vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Coming to you live from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends John Magi, Kevin Close, Holly Forde, and Dustin West, who has been freed from the producer's nook.
Yeah.
Producing this episode is the lovely and talented Gregory Williams and the lovely and talented Jonathan Thompson.
There he is.
Back in the production nook. It looks so much roomier back there for you guys right now.
It's our version of Siegfried and Roy.
I had given Dustin the idea to do this segment a few months back when he took me through Animal Kingdom. Dustin used to work in Animal Kingdom, and I'll be honest with you, my least favorite park at Disney. Very little interest. It's hot, there's no shade, and there's not an awful lot there that I enjoy doing. So when he said he wanted to go to Animal Kingdom, we were doing stuff for the site, and we were shooting some videos. I'm like, oh, all right, fine. As we're walking through, though, he's pointing out all this stuff, all these details and, the backstory that the Imagineers put into creating these different areas. And I'm like, oh, this is probably the most interesting Animal Kingdom's ever been to me. And I said, you really need to do this as a segment. And then when we put the call out a few months back for some special correspondence from listeners to be special correspondents to the show, Holly was one of the folks who responded, and it turns out Holly used to work at Animal Kingdom as well, in a slightly more important job, I would say, than. Well,
different.
It's different.
Very different. Okay, let's say that. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No.
What did Holly do that was so important?
Well, Holly, why don't you talk a little bit about your background so people get to know you a little bit and what you did at Animal Kingdom.
Sure. I actually had 2 internships in Animal Kingdom itself. I had merchandise in the college program, and then after I graduated with my degree in zoology, I actually got a professional internship at the Wildlife Tracking Center, which is in Conservation Station. So I worked in the research lab there. So we did a lot of behavioral and endocrine research, so hormone levels of different animals.
Wow. So you were also tracking these, because all these animals are barcoded, aren't they? Like,
I don't know about that. Yeah, I can't speak to that. But we collected the animal samples and then monitored pregnancies and things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and Dustin, when you worked at Animal Kingdom,
I drove a train.
Okay.
Wait, drove a train. Do we get to vote on who was more important?
No, I worked as an operations cast member full time. I worked at the trains that take you out to Rafiki's Planet Watch. I also operated Expedition Everest and Cali River Rapids. So I spent a good year over there at Animal Kingdom and learned a lot through some of their special training programs that they have for the cast members. They give you a little backstory on some of the theming and whatnot throughout Africa, Discovery Island, Asia, all that. And so that's kind of what I'm going to incorporate today in this segment is some of the stuff I learned as a cast member and talk about that. Yeah.
And this is going to be part 1 of 2. As Dustin was going through the segment for me the other night, there's so much information here. There's so much stuff that I said to him, trying to go through this in one segment's crazy. So we're going to make this a two-parter. Make Holly come back.
Sounds
right.
good.
So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, I wanted to call this Overlooked Animal Kingdom because we're incorporating not only some theming things that you might not notice as you're walking through Animal Kingdom, but we're also talking about the animals in general and some of the care that is provided for the animals by the animal care cast members. So, and these are the kind of the things that are overlooked. I feel like most people, when they go into Animal Kingdom, they just rush into Expedition Everest or the safari, and there's so much that gets overlooked at Animal Kingdom. So that's why I wanted to. That's the theme of this segment. Like I said, I used to work at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Spent a good amount of time there. So did Holly. I think the first thing you have some general information about the animal care that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I guess one of the first things that you might notice as you're entering the park is that right next to the American flag is the flag for the American Zoo and Aquarium Association, or the AZA. So what that basically means is that they have to go through a rigorous accreditation process every 5 years, and only less than 10% of the animal exhibits that are registered in the United States have that accreditation. So you would expect Disney to do that and to be up there, but they actually do take great care of the animals and have to go through. They look at behind the scenes stuff, animal care and welfare, what they feed the animals, and also a level of education and conservation that the park has to maintain to keep that status.
Right, and when Animal Kingdom first opened, one of their big things was that it's not a zoo. That was like their
not a zoo.
Tagline.
Yeah, it was their tagline.
And as the story goes, when they were first building the park, Joe Rody and some of the other Imagineers knew that they wanted to be accredited by the AZA, but there were some theming things that they did that didn't quite fit into the AZA's qualifications. Namely, they didn't have signs posted outside the different animal exhibits. So, like if you were to go to the macaws or the kangaroos, you would just look at them and say, well, what animal is this? And now the AZA wants you, obviously, to have the information posted about the animal. Their answer to this was, at first, to have cast members posted at every single animal exhibit. And I don't think that lasted very long.
Yeah, they still do that at quite a few of the big ones, the gorillas, the tigers, things like that.
Right. And that's more just to dish out extra information, but you're still going to find the signs posted outside of the exhibits. But that was just one of those things. They thought it might break theming if they had the signs, that Disney theming, but they had to do it because of the AZA. Did you have anything else just before we go into the Oasis?
No, let's go.
Okay, so as we go into the Oasis, that's the main entrance for the park. I do have some things I want to talk about theming-wise there. As you first go into the Oasis, it's very different from the entrances to the other three theme parks at Disney World. You go into the Magic Kingdom, you go into Hollywood Studios or Epcot, you walk through the gate and boom, there's the castle, there's the Spaceship Earth or the Chinese theater or the hat that's there. Oasis is designed to kind of make you feel lost as soon as you go in. The Imagineers wanted to create Animal Kingdom as sort of an adventure that you immediately get lost and you don't know which way to go. That's why you're going to see some waterfalls, you're going to see some bridges, caves. There's like a million different options that you can take in the Oasis. I think most people just stick to the right and go straight to Discovery Island. But if you wanted to, you could spend a lot of time in the Oasis. Another thing the Imagineers wanted to do when they first created Animal Kingdom is they didn't want any park maps like the other ones. But I think the Disney executives decided, we kind of need park maps. The idea, again...
They wanted it to be like an adventure.
They wanted it to be an adventure. They wanted you to go based on where the path took you. They wanted you to just figure out your own experience and not be stuck to a map.
Can you imagine?
And not know what you're looking at.
Well,
Right, exactly.
We were in the Oasis recently,
Yeah.
and there was this big ball of fur, and there was a cast member standing there. And being me, I said to the lady, "Could you poke it with a stick so it would get up?" And she kind of rolled her eyes and turned to look at somebody else, but I can't imagine them not telling you what it is. I mean, we would have all stood there and looked at this big ball of sleeping fur and not had a clue as to what it was.
Yeah.
It was an
that it?
anteater.
That's on the screen.
I know, I don't think so. But the I think the main theme of the Oasis is that it's that original feeling the Imagineers wanted you to have is we're getting lost, we're going on an adventure, and most people, again, and I'm going to say this sentence a lot today, most people just blow right past it, and they don't see it. And there are a bunch of animal exhibits in the Oasis, and we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, if you actually take the time to, stop and look at the animals instead of rushing right off to your first attraction. One of my favorites is as you go to the right, as you're breezing right past, you might want to take a look at the very right-hand side is the Babirusa. It looks like a pig, but right now I think there's a male and a female, and the male is really, really cool looking. You got to check them out. They usually actually have somebody standing there with a skull, and you can see how the top incisors grow right through the roof of its mouth and curl around. So be sure to check that out. It doesn't dig in the dirt like a typical pig would, like root around, but those are used solely for fighting. And you might see the giant anteater if you go to the left. It's on the very left-hand side. Those are usually sleeping, I must admit.
And the cast member will not poke them with a stick.
Yeah, I don't see them moving around very much. But you'll also see that the birds, that they have beautiful macaws there. And the Rhinoceros Iguana is also one of my favorites. It's kind of a
funny
big
you're
lizard.
saying these things because when I go there, all I see are the birds.
Yeah.
Right.
So
They're big and they're colorful, but you got to look
Right.
down and in the bushes.
So
you
why
can see
doesn't
that.
Disney have someone saying, "Hey guys, come this way. I've got something really cool for you to see"?
It depends on their staffing. Sometimes they will.
Sometimes they do,
won't.
yeah. Sometimes they do.
Never been there where someone's sort of guided me there.
No.
It's always
It's typically
been
in the mornings. I don't know if you're a morning person,
Yeah,
but
that's
if you
not good.
okay, well.
No, we're not.
5:30. They don't do that.
And that goes for Animal Kingdom in general. I mean, most of the animals you're going to find are more active in the morning. That's just how it is. But I think the animals at Oasis, correct me if I'm wrong, they're kind of like that, and Discovery Island are kind of the animals that don't really fit in anywhere else. They're from a different area of the world than the themed lands in at Animal Kingdom. So this is kind of like a mishmash of different types of animals.
Right, and they're also the smaller animals that don't need a very large habitat, like in the back of the park. So.
Do those animals stay there all the time, or do they go elsewhere at night?
A lot of them do have backstage habitats. I know the birds, particular, are taken out every day and brought back in, like the macaws.
Taken out like shot?
No.
This is what I told you would happen.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
No, and they actually won't be taken out if the weather's too cold. So if it's too cold, they actually won't take some of the animals out.
Okay. Very cool. Are there any other animals there in the Oasis?
Not that I was
Okay.
going to talk about.
Okay, cool. So, as you go into Discovery Island, you're going to cross over a bridge, and you'll find that this is part of the theming throughout Disney's Animal Kingdom. Discovery Island is indeed an island. I mean, I'm sure it's a man-made river that goes around it, but to get to each land, you have to cross over a bridge. Now, there's an interesting theming behind Discovery Island that I don't think most people know. In fact, I'm not even sure that if you're a regular guest, there's any clue to any of this, but I've been told some of this information. Discovery Island kind of has a theming based on some sort of a great storm that happened in ancient times. It's kind of a mix between the Great Flood in the Bible and the Garden of Eden is kind of the theming for it. And first of all, you can see in some of the shops, some of the exterior of the shop there, the theming of Discovery Island is all types of different island cultures.
It's very Caribbean looking.
Yeah, so you do
those
have
colors,
some. Yeah, you have some Caribbean influence, but there's also African, Australian, South Pacific, and different Asian island nations. That theming influence comes into the architecture in Discovery Island, and the reason for that is that, as the story goes, long time ago there was a great storm or a great flood, and all the people from all corners of the world made their way onto Discovery Island, bringing all these different types of animals with them. Now, you might think that the theming is so mishmashed in Discovery Island because that's where the shops are and you got to see all the different animals. Maybe that's what it really is, but there is a story behind it. They had to bring these animals together.
That is pretty well hidden. I had no idea, did you?
No.
And even when you go into the shops, you can see a picture there. There's otters in one, and then there's camels in the exact same shop. And then around the border of all the stores are these panels that tell the story of this great storm. This great storm flooded the world, and everyone came into Discovery Island when the floodwaters receded. People took their animals back to those lands from which they came, but there was this culture left on Discovery Island of all these nations put together. And you'll see there's signs posted throughout Discovery Island saying Islanders only. That's their cast member sign. They themed the cast members around Islanders, and they've been there for years. And these are the Islanders that have settled there since the Great Storm. They're also the Islanders that have carved all the animals into the Tree of Life. And you can see some of that in a little bit here.
Did you know it used to be called Safari Village?
It did used to be called Safari Village, but all the theming was there.
I know, yeah.
So I don't know how they got away with that. But Discovery Island.
I like the name a lot better, yeah. When I worked in merchandise there, that was actually the shop that you showed, the Island Mercantile, right in front of the tree, where I worked. We used to have to be called Villagers because it was Safari Village.
Right.
But guests would come up asking where the safari was. I think they got really confused that it was called Safari Village, where's Safari, but that's in Africa. So I really like the name change.
Yeah, I think, and it fits this. I don't know if they came up with that story after they changed the name or what, but I really like that story. I like that it's an island and it's a multicultural place. It's really cool. You also notice in some of the shops I don't want to get there yet. There's areas in Tree of Life, the Tree of Life garden walkabout, where you can see a lot of different animals. There's also some really great photo opportunities, and I don't think people really notice this area of the Tree of Life garden. People just walk right past it. Again, they blow right past it. They're going to the safari. They're going to Expedition Everest. But why don't we talk about some of the animals that are on the Tree of Life garden trail?
Sure. Right as you approach the tree, the very first thing you're going to see is I think it's actually right in that picture there, that little building is an island, and that houses the cotton-top tamarins.
Right.
And these guys are super cute. They're like 1.5 to 2 pound monkeys. That's all the bigger that they get. Just very, very tiny. And they only live in Colombia, South America. And these are actually some of the monkeys that I studied in the lab. And they actually studied them down in Colombia. So, unfortunately, they're overpopulated in zoos, but they're endangered in the wild due to habitat loss. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they used to be over at Rafiki's Planet Watch, but I think they're working on the exhibit right now. So they're at Discovery Island right now. I don't know what's usually in that exhibit. Are they?
There were actually two groups. There were some. There were some in the back, and then there was this group in the front. So.
Okay.
What keeps them from getting away?
They just can't jump that far. It's very carefully designed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the barriers in Animal Kingdom are natural barriers.
Exactly.
So you're not seeing like fences and...
Especially with some of the primate exhibits, you'll find that they often have a moat around them. As long as the distance of the moat, they can't jump over it, they can't swim. So, and they're afraid of it.
Yeah, like these guys always stay in the tree. If you ever see them down, it probably means they're injured or something like that. So they'll never come down to the ground.
And there's another great area just as you walk past the Tree of Life on the left. There's you go down under this rock and there's this pool where you can see some fish and some of the otters.
Yeah, these are the Asian small-clawed otters. They're actually the least aquatic of the otter species, so you're probably going to see them on that island in there.
Yeah.
If you see them at all. It's a family group, so you might see the mom and the dad and the young pups in there.
Yeah, whenever I go over there, I usually see them sitting on the ground. They're not swimming, which is unfortunate. But I love this garden walk. They're working on it right now because there was an incident with one of the branches falling off of the Tree of Life. They've got the mesh netting is being built. So you can't, as of right now, you can't kind of explore the Tree of Life garden trail as much as you could. But there are some more exhibits that are open right now. The kangaroos are still out there, if you want to talk about those.
Yeah, the Galapagos tortoise is out there as well on the backside of the tree. Yeah. So
I have a question about the tortoises. There used to be a Discovery Island out behind the Contemporary, and there were tortoises on that. Are these the tortoises from that Discovery Island?
I would say that there's a good chance. I don't know that for sure. I know that the animals off that island were relocated, a lot of them to Animal Kingdom.
Yeah,
so.
and I'm not. Some of them may have gone to the living seas as well, from what I understand. But I can't confirm that.
These were big old land tortoises.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think these were aquatic animals.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're huge.
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So I want to move over to Africa. I think we've got the feel of Discovery Island. It's that multicultural island nation. As you cross another bridge over to Africa, you're going to see you see that photo there. We're still in the Discovery Island theming, and most of the shops in Discovery Island, the ones over near the bridge near Africa, the animals inside those shops are slightly more African. It's just a small bit of theming that I find interesting. So you're going to find some African animals on that side. And if you go toward Dinoland or Asia, the animals over there are like tigers and snakes and more Asian-themed animals. But we go across the bridge to the port of Harambe. There's 3 different kind of ecosystems in Harambe village. So it's kind of a cross section of Africa and the different regions of Africa. The first one that you come across is a port town. It's a cape town in Africa. It's the port of Harambe. The second ecosystem would be the Savannah grasslands as part of the Kilimanjaro safaris and the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. And the other one, of course, is the jungle at Pangani Forest Exploration Trail. So. As you go further along in the village, you get deeper into the jungles of Africa, basically, which I always thought was interesting. Another thing that I don't think people really notice, and again, it's not really described to anybody that just visits the park, you really have to look for it, is that Harambe used to be a fort. And if we go back to that other picture, you can actually see these white bricks on the floor. And that's the old gate. Those are the floor bricks of what used to be a gigantic fortress wall, and that's the woman in the red there is walking right through where the gate used to be. And
I just want to interrupt briefly and say, for those who are listening and not watching the show, all of these photos are going up in a gallery. Unplugged.com, you'll find a link to that, so you can follow through some of these pictures that Dustin's showing as he's doing this.
Right, yeah. And like I said, it used to be a fortress, a European colony. There was a European fortress that was built, and now since the Europeans are no longer holding Harambe, they've knocked down some of the walls. They've made it more open. It's more of a marketplace village feel. And as you go through there, you'll see some of those bricks on the floor where it used to be. The fort has since been turned into a hotel. And that's the building where Tusker House is. So it's a hotel, a restaurant, and a marketplace. You can see that, it's an active hotel. People hang out on the rooftops. People are hanging their laundry on the roof of the hotel. People are clanking pots and pans, and you can hear kitchen noises. And
this was something he pointed out to me that, because usually just kind of breezing through there, and he's like, stop for a second and listen, and you can hear from, up top of the building, you hear the people talking, the clanking dishes, all this stuff. If you don't stop and look for it, you'd miss it.
There's just so much detail in the village of Harambe alone that people just, again, blow right past. They're going to the safari. They got to get their fast pass. Yeah, there's so much stuff there. And they're kind of taking their cues from Main Street, like those windows above Main Street where you can hear the barber or you can hear the piano teacher. You hear those noises throughout the village of Harambe.
It's also the hottest spot on earth.
It is very hot during the summer months. There's not a lot of shade there. That is true. But and that's another thing about Animal Kingdom is there is a lot of shade. If you really look for it, you can find it. And as long as you're not overstressing yourself, drink a lot of water, those kind of tips. Animal Kingdom can be fun for everybody.
Well, and I like how they're adding more air conditioning. With the Lion King Theater, it didn't used to be enclosed, now it is. Same thing with the Nemo Theater. So, they definitely need more air-conditioned places.
Oh, no question. That's a very hot park.
Yes, it is. And so, again, that used to be the fort. It's now the hotel. And of course, Tusker House is down below, along with the marketplace inside Tusker House. And across the street, you have the Port Authority. That's where all the customs come in, and all your traded goods are going to come in. The Port Authority building is actually the bathroom. But it's a well-themed bathroom. And I actually have a story about bathrooms. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, because I just wrote in my...
This stunned me. When he told me this, I was stunned by this.
I made a note here, and I sent it to Holly, and I just put bathrooms, and I figured she would know what it meant. Or bathroom doors, I should say. Animal Kingdom's the only theme park in Disney World that has doors on their bathrooms. And the doors close, and you have to pull them to open them. A lot of them also have deadbolts on the inside. And I'm not just talking about the private or handicap bathrooms. I'm talking about the larger bathrooms.
The bathroom itself, the door to the bathroom itself has a deadbolt on it.
Yep. And the reason for this is because of potential dangerous animal escapes. So this is an area of refuge that Disney has built in. There's enough inside closable buildings, so like restaurants, kitchens, bathrooms. There's enough space like that to house everybody in the park capacity-wise safely if there is a dangerous animal escape, which there hasn't been ever, and I highly doubt there will be because of all the precautions they take. But I always, people, it's like, oh, walking in the bathroom, okay, I'll open the door. They don't notice that Magic Kingdom doesn't have doors on their bathrooms, but Animal Kingdom does, and that's because...
It's a safe haven in the event some animal gets out. You can lock yourself in there.
Yep.
I was stunned by that when he said that there are enough places like that in Animal Kingdom to house every person in that park,
including cast.
Now, it just when you think about that, when you think about having to design that park, just in general, it's got to. I mean, designing a theme park's got to be a challenge in and of itself. But then when you have to think about how do we get every single person in this park into a protected space if a lion gets loose or a gorilla gets loose, a dangerous animal gets loose that could hurt them. That for me, I was stunned by that.
Do you remember the astounding statistic that they could enter the Magic Kingdom in like 6 minutes in case of a natural disaster or a man-made issue? They can clear the Magic Kingdom and have everybody underground in under 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It was something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
I might have that number a little bit off.
Right.
But when I first heard that, I thought, imagine having the foresight to think of something like that.
Exactly.
There are different evacuation procedures for different types of events at every theme park. Every cast member is well trained on them. And that's why you'll see in some of the backstage areas, like the gates that lead to, say, cast members only, it's not just a small little door. It's like a gigantic gate. That's in the case of that, in case you need a big crowd exiting at one time, that's what that's for. There's another thing before we get to the safari and some of the animals. I want to talk about just an interesting little thing. There's a restaurant at the edge of the village called Tamu Refreshments, and that's like the fast food area in the safari. I mean the Harambe village, and Tamu is Swahili for or tamu means delicious or sweet in Swahili. And now if you repeat a word in Swahili twice, that means very in English. So it's a very delicious refreshments or very
according
sweet
to them
refreshments. This is what the Imagineers are saying, and people that speak Swahili.
Have they eaten the food?
I don't know. But there's also inside Tamu Refreshments, just behind it, there's a nice little hidden seating area that I don't think a lot of people know about. I was there the other day taking these photos, and it was crowded. Spring break's coming; it's packed, and there was like 2 people in the seating.
Yeah,
it's nice,
empty.
Shaded area in the middle of Africa.
It's really well hidden.
Yeah, it is.
And there's
well
also
hidden.
more seating around back. There's a whole sort of back area that has walls, and
it's in that walkway toward Asia. Yeah, there's more stuff over there, and inside that. Seating area, you'll find these signs, and you'll find them all over the place. One of them says Joe Rody, Mask and Beads. Of course, that's a reference to Joe Rody, the Imagineer, that was very influential in Animal Kingdom. But they had an entire team of people when they created the park do nothing but design these like attraction posters that are plastered against the walls in Harambe and Asia. So you'll see like Harambe wildlife advertisements and other companies too, like competing safari companies and you can see that they've been like ripped down, and because the Harambe Wildlife Reserve doesn't want them up, or Kilimanjaro Safaris, I should say. And there's one more thing in the Harambe village, and it's the only actual baobab tree in Animal Kingdom. Now, we've seen the other baobab trees. There's those gigantic trees that look like they're upside-down root systems. There's one on the safari. There's one right at the entrance to the safari. Well, if you go to the wood carvers, you can find the actual baobab tree. It's a youngin'. It's not as big as the other ones, but those are fruit that are hanging down from it, and it takes a very long time for them to become those big trees. I think it's funny that we actually do have a real baobab tree.
I thought the one on the safari was actually brought here from somewhere else, from like South Florida or something.
I don't know that baobab trees can grow that large.
And you said that they take a ridiculous amount of time to grow.
Well, most baobab trees, some of the larger ones, can be thousands of years old. The only problem is they can't test to see how old they are because they don't have rings inside them like normal trees do. But that's what they assume, is that they're at least 1,000 years old. So they take a while to grow that big.
And that's fruit, you say, that hangs from...
Yeah, it's their seeds. I don't know if it's edible fruit, but that's their fruit that seeds the trees. Yeah. So that's cool. Nice little fact you can point out to your friends like that. Hey, that's the real baobab tree. But then we go into the safari, and there's a whole host of animals there. I'm not going to get into the theming of the safari because apparently that keeps changing. Symbol 1's not there anymore. But
thank you, God. That ridiculous storyline.
Well, I was there opening week.
Yeah.
I went the week Animal Kingdom opened. And the story was, the lions were feeding out of a giraffe. Mm-hmm. There was a giraffe carcass, and the lion food was inside, so it looked like they were eating the giraffe. It was horrifying and disgusting.
It was.
I don't remember that.
It was, and people shrieked and screamed and cried.
Because they had just seen the giraffe earlier.
Not the giraffe. I'm sorry, a zebra. I apologize.
Zebra, yeah.
It was a zebra carcass.
Yeah.
But that's where the lion food was in the middle. I imagine it was plexiglass or something like that. But that was the whole story. The lions had finally caught the zebra, and they thought, okay, that's a little too much realism.
Yeah. Now they just feed them pellets and leaves and stuff like that. Well, they did that anyway, but they don't hide it inside of a zebra carcass.
Well, and the conservation message with the safari in particular is about poaching, obviously. And at the very beginning, they did actually have a killed elephant at the end after you pass the poacher's camp. So
that upset a lot of people.
That did upset. So then they put the baby elephant, like, oh yay, we're saving the baby elephant, instead of baby elephant's mommy died. So.
So you want to talk a little bit about the animal programs there in the safari and Pangani Forest in Africa. Just kind of talk with us about how they take care of those animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to go back just 1 second.
Sure.
Okay.
One of our listeners has said the baobab fruit has 3 times as much vitamin C as an orange, 50% more calcium than spinach, and it's a plentiful source of antioxidants.
It is edible then.
Well, there you go.
There you go. That answers that.
Baobab freak.
Okay, let's talk about the animals on the safari.
The safari itself holds over 300 animals. So, and the majority of the species on the safari you won't be able to see in other parts of Animal Kingdom.
Right.
Which I think is kind of disappointing in some cases, because what if you have somebody that's not able to go on the safari? They're just not going to be able to see those animals. The elephants are my personal favorite, and if I wasn't able to go on the safari and see the elephants, you wouldn't be able to see the elephants. So
yeah. There are some crossover between the safari and Pangani and some of the other exhibits, but most of the safari animals, this attraction is designed to get you and see these animals. And I know they do a lot of different things with the animals, how they separate the animals, how they feed the animals.
Yeah, absolutely. So the safari is separated into several different sections. So when you first start on the safari, you're actually in an area called the Aturi Forest. And there you're going to find more of the forest species. Also the black rhino is going to be there as well. Then you're going to go into, there's the Okapi. The Okapi is actually related to the giraffe, like I think everybody on the safari has said. But the Okapi only gets to about 6 feet tall, whereas the giraffe gets to about 20 6-ish feet tall, so definitely a distant relative. You can see the head shape is the same, but it's much, much shorter neck, and obviously a different coat pattern. Also, the Okapi lives in the forest, in the rainforest, so its coat is really oily, and if you ever had the opportunity to feel an Okapi, it's like really oily, so that's how the rain can kind of go right off of its coat. So the Okapi is one of my favorite. You'll see them actually on the safari on the right, and then if you go on Pankani, they're on the left. So that's actually the same exhibit.
Oh, is it really? I didn't realize that.
Well, it is, but it's not. They're two separate areas, but they're back to back.
Yeah.
So
they share it.
Yeah, they share it, exactly. So then you're going to go into the hippo area.
Right.
Yep. So the hippo is actually another species that you're going to be able to see. Actually, when you're on the safari, the area on the right is actually the underwater viewing pool if you're on Pangani. So that, I can't speak for it now, but that used to have the male hippos there, and then the females were actually on the right. So the bigger group is the female hippos. And then you're going to cross over the Nile crocodiles, which are real, even though sometimes they're not moving. They're definitely real, so watch your kids. Do not stand up. I have seen people stand up in that area, and I'm just like,
yikes.
Seriously. No. And then you're going to go into the main area of the savanna, which is the West Savannah. That's actually a free-roaming savanna, so you may see different animals at different times. They're always going to be out there. But animals do like to hide, so that's actually one of the reasons you might see trucks out there, is to encourage the animals to go to different visible places on the savanna. Right. They'll put out what they call enrichment, so different food items, things like that, into places to encourage the animals to, get up and walk around. So I know a lot of people have said you want to go on safari first thing in the morning because that's when all the animals are out. That's true, but they do roam around quite a bit throughout the day, so it's not.
They're looking for treats.
Yeah, it's not like all is lost if you don't get there first thing in the morning. So.
Very cool. And so we're going to talk about Pangani next a little bit.
Sure, we could. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to add, I guess, but. Pangani, just an interesting note as far as theming is concerned, Pangani is, the theming of that is wildlife research. So an interesting thing is that the people that work on the Pangani Forest Exploration Trail, the people that actually work the attraction side, so that they don't necessarily have animal training. They wear the same costume as the cast members that do have animal training. And I know that there's kind of like, they don't like it, the animal care people don't like it, but that's what it's themed to be, is that these people are animal researchers, so they share the same costume. I always thought that was interesting. I don't know if that ever confused you when you worked there.
It did, yeah, actually, when I first got there, because that's what I wanted to do. My major was zoology. I wanted to work with animals. I went up to talk to somebody like, oh, how do you get into this field? And they said that they weren't.
I'm a retiree living in Winter Garden.
Exactly. So.
This is one of my favorite places, though, in Animal Kingdom.
Pangani?
For the gorillas.
Yeah, absolutely. The gorillas are wonderful. There are two groups of gorillas. The first ones that you're going to encounter behind the glass are the family group. They actually are a breeding group, as far as I know. I know they have had offspring before. And then after you go past the family group, they're still going to be on your right-hand side, and then the bachelor group, the adult males, are going to be on the left.
And that's the smell.
I was just going to say, the smell.
Yeah. I actually worked back in Conservation Station in the Wildlife Tracking Center, which is right next to the Veterinary Treatment Center. They do bring the gorillas back there, and you knew immediately when you came in that day that there was a gorilla in the room.
Yeah, it just kind of smells like a body odor.
It's really bad.
It's a little potent.
Is Animal Kingdom self-sufficient for all new animals, or do they still have to bring in new animals? Is it constantly animals procreating?
Yeah, well, that's part of it. But since they're part of the AZA, they participate in the species survival plan, so they do work with other zoos in, moving around animals. So, they do own their animals, but, they participate in...
So new animals come in.
Yeah.
What's the process for acclimating them? Do you put them in a bag in water and let them... So it
depends on it depends on the species. For the safari, if you ever see those canvas fences up, that means that a new animal has been introduced.
And they don't want the safari vehicle to frighten them? Is that why they have that?
Yeah, because it's a really big area. They don't know the boundaries of the area, so they might put them in front of like the moats or something like that.
Because one of the things that happened with this park was they built the safari first. they actually built the safari, put animals in there, and then they built the rest of the park around it. So the animals would get used to noises and get used to things going around. I imagine a new animal, a new gorilla, would get spooked really easily.
When
Yeah.
There's a problem.
When Animal Kingdom first opened, they had a problem with losing some of the animals, and people were very concerned. They seem to have corrected that.
Yeah.
You don't
I
hear
remember-
that.
No, you don't
hardly
hear that anymore. There was a problem with I forget what it was, antifreeze. There was something coming out of the vehicles that the animals didn't recognize, and that was a problem.
Didn't realize that.
But this was very, very early on.
Right.
But they seem to have corrected all of that, and Disney's really good at that. So the animals are safe now.
Yeah, I could attest to that.
Right.
I think this was something nobody saw coming. You put a vehicle out in the middle of the animal habitat, and things come out of cars. So
Right. Okay. Are there any more animals on Pangani? I think there's a few.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of animals on Pangani, but I mean,
Are there any more animals on the Pangani Forest Trail?
yeah, absolutely. There you're going to see the naked mole rats, which are inside the building right before you get to the
I have their album.
aviary.
They kind of skeeve me out. I
Yeah,
gotta be honest.
they kind of look like naked rats. So but they're really cool. They're blind because they live underground. So they go solely by smell, and they have a little tunnel system. So those are kind of fun to watch.
It's a great place if you have kids that do like insects. That's a great place to go to. Is both Rafiki's Planet Watch and Pangani Forest Exploration Trail. Some cool insects there, if your kids are into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also have the Meerkats, which are a lot of fun to watch. And
Oh, my favorite thing on Pangani is at the Meerkat exhibit, they have the skull of a meerkat and the skull of a warthog right next to each other, so you can kind of see what Timon and
That always kind of freaks me out, though. And
that's so weird.
when you see the skull,
Here's the dead animal,
and here's his
and
brother.
there's the live one.
yeah,
It's a little creepy.
I don't think that they're real skulls.
Yeah,
I think
recreations
that
probably.
they're just replicas.
Hakuna Matata.
Just like in Lion King.
Don't do it.
Okay. So anyway, I want to move on to Conservation Station. This is where I have a lot of my cool juicy stuff. I love this spot. I used to work again at the Trains to take you out to Rafiki's Planet Watch / Conservation Station.
Well, you want to talk about overlooked Animal Kingdom. I mean,
Right. The biggest problem that Rafiki's Planet Watch and Conservation Station has
has the word conservation in the name,
well,
which is like
beyond
kryptonite
that,
to people.
beyond that is the fact that the only way to get there is via train. Trains that run supposedly reliably every 5 minutes, but they're, every now and then trains do break down and they're only running one of the trains, and you kind of get stuck out there and you can wait 15 or 20 minutes to get to Rafiki's Planet Watch and then come back, and everybody kind of gets aggravated. People want a walking trail out there. I think
Absolutely.
I think if it had more foot traffic, it would not be so overlooked, because I do feel like Conservation Station is the heart of Animal Kingdom. It's what Animal Kingdom is all about.
It's true. There's a lot of cool stuff back there. And I think one of the problems with the train, especially like on the way back, like people will wait for something in order to experience an attraction, but they've already experienced it. And just to get back to the park, you have to wait. And we've had a lot of disgruntled.
I have a confession.
Yeah.
I've never been
Never.
back there.
Oh.
I knew you were going
Because
to
you
say
have
that.
to take the
I
train.
thought we went out there once.
Oh no, it wasn't me.
I went out there once.
Well, just an
Yeah,
interesting
and you
note.
came back and said it smelled like new paint.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Just an interesting note on the trains. They're replicas of British trains that would have existed in Africa. They're actually built by one of the companies that British companies that built trains in Africa in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And these are diesel trains, and they run on a 3/4 size track compared to some of the larger tracks we have here in the United States. For those train buffs listening and watching, they might be interested in that. As soon as you get on the train station is themed to Harambe. It's all African. As soon as that train starts moving, theming goes away. You're now focused on conservation. You're now focused on animal care. You're going to Rafiki's Planet Watch and Conservation Station.
We have a question. Are the trains ECV accessible?
Yes, they are. Now, here's the thing, and you asked me this question. I'm going to give you the details on this. Here's the thing. You might have to wait for another train to go by, but they are ECV and wheelchair
There are trains that are accessible.
Both trains are accessible. They can accommodate 3 full wheelchairs for the person to continue sitting in the wheelchair at a time on each train. If you want to fold your wheelchair up and transfer, you can do that as well. But if you do not or cannot get out of your wheelchair, there may be 3 people ahead of you, and you might have to wait for the next train. So it could take you 10 minutes to get over there. The same coming back.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Also, for the mothers out there and the fathers out there that have young kids, strollers are allowed on the train.
Strollers are allowed on the train. You do have to fold your stroller. I usually recommend that you just leave your stroller at the stroller parking before
Because,
you go on the
they're
train.
not allowed in the conservation station itself, so you're really not going to use
You're
it
just
over there.
using it
Really?
on
You
that
can't have strollers back there?
You cannot have them in the building.
So you're using them.
It's just too crowded.
You're
Yeah.
using them on that small walkway between the train station and the
It's not
conservation
worth
building.
it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, leave your
strollers.
stroller.
That's a good tip, actually.
It is. It is. The people that work there might hate me for saying that because they have to organize that stroller parking, but that's okay. It's a helpful hint for the guests. On the train ride, you're going to see a couple animal exhibits. These are actual backstage housing for the animals. This is where they come at night when they're on the safari during the day. They call them back at night, and these are their real houses. We have a picture right now of the white rhino, one of the white rhino areas. So they have an area that they can roam around that's a little more open. Then they also have individual pens that they go into at night. So maybe you want to
Yeah, almost all of the animals on the safari are taken into the backstage housing at night, and the main reason for that is to just check them out, make sure they're doing all right, make sure that they're eating okay, because when they're out on the savannah, you can't really monitor every animal's diet, some things like that. But and also. The animals do a lot of destruction out on the savannah, so they have a lot of rehab work to do out there at night. So almost all the animals are taken in, and they each have a different audio cue, and they'll come in at night.
Like what kind of audio cue?
Like each one will be different, like a triangle or like hitting a bar.
But they're all
each one
trained for this.
They're all trained. They're all trained.
It's, they know that it's about time to eat.
Exactly.
When they hear that.
They know what time of day it is. They pretty much know that they're going to come in anyway. But they do respond to the audio cue after the last vehicle's done on the safari.
I have a question. What is there some protocol in place if we're going to have a storm? Central Florida is prone to hurricanes, and we just had a tornado watch recently. Is there some protocol for the animals?
Put them in the bathrooms.
I'm sure there is. They might actually, like if there was a tornado warning in the middle of the day, a hurricane warning. I mean, if there's a hurricane approaching, I'm sure that they would keep the animals inside the barns.
In the enclosures,
Because there are barns. I mean, there are inside
Oh, yes,
places.
And you
absolutely,
can see
yeah.
one right there in that photo.
that's
It's
the-
a covered.
Cement walled. So, I mean,
Right.
seriously, that's, very, very
it's
secure
not
for the
going
animal,
anywhere.
right?
If it can withstand a white rhino, it can withstand a hurricane.
Exactly. The safest place to be, I would think, is the elephant barn, because if it can, hold an elephant, it's gonna,
Some of the animals also, if you're seeing them on the backstage train ride, that means that there's another group out on the safari right now, and this group, like she said, there's different groups of animals. So with the white rhinos, I know there's one. There's 2 different groups, and one is kind of a troublemaker, and they have to separate him sometimes. So you'll see him off to him. So I rode that train a million times a day, and I learned the behavior of white rhinos better than I could possibly want to or care to. But you would always see this one white rhino all sad because he's a troublemaker and he doesn't get along with the others.
Well, you said he thought he was the alpha male.
He thought he was the alpha male, but indeed he wasn't the alpha male. So he had to be set aside.
Well, and a lot of times they're separated for breeding purposes.
Right.
Like if they're related, they're obviously not going to put them out together, that sort of thing. So he might have been sad about that.
He might have been sad about, not breeding.
With his sister.
With his sister. No comment there.
It is Central Florida, after all.
Okay. So I want to get past these enclosures. This is just a nice little sneak peek, so you can see the backstage areas where they keep the animals. Once we get actually out to Rafiki's Planet Watch, you'll notice that there is a big mural outside of Rafiki's Planet Watch, and all of these animals that are on the mural. Just a little tidbit: they've either been on the endangered species list or they're currently on the endangered species list. Just a reminder, a nice big reminder of what Rafiki's Planet Watch is all about. And as you go into the building, there's a room that you first go into, and it has all like a mural, like another little mural of all these animals. Inside that room, there's over 100 hidden Mickeys for people who are looking for hidden Mickeys. Now, it's not like your typical hidden Mickey where 3 circles of something have been arranged. It's painted into it, but there's over 100 on that mural itself. And I also wanted to mention the benches throughout the park. The park benches throughout Disney's Animal Kingdom are made out of recycled plastic. And the spiel we do, I'm sure that there's some truth to this. The spiel that we would always do is that the benches are made from over 2,000 recycled milk jugs. As they, recycle the plastic and create the benches there.
It's pretty cool.
They get hot in the summer.
Do they?
They smell like spoiled milk.
And so as we go into the building, a conservation station, and I haven't decided, is that building called Conservation Station, or is it called Rafiki's Planet Watch?
I think Rafiki's Planet Watch is the whole area, and Conservation Station is the building.
The building itself.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, there was always confusion there, but not that it really matters. There is an actual operating room inside Conservation Station.
Didn't Bob get to watch them operate on a cheater?
And the cheaters.
Yep. You operate on the cheaters there.
Well, when I went there the other day, they were doing some dental work on a lion. I couldn't get close enough to get a good photo because everybody was crowded around. People will not move. But they do have those television screens. You can see what they're doing. They were crowded by different doctors and dentists, and I'm sure there was the animal keepers were in there as well. But this is just one of the rooms. This is a show room. It's show ready for the guests to see. There's a whole campus behind Rafiki's Planet Watch that no one sees. And I told Pete the other day, it reminds me of a college campus or a hospital campus. It's huge and sprawling. There's the nutrition center. There's the veterinary center. Whole bunch of different buildings back there, and the animal programs office is back there as well.
Holly, do you ever do any of the on-stage stuff in that area?
Yeah, actually. Mm-hmm.
The nutrition center, right?
Yeah, I get to work in the fishbowl, so we did our lab work right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, people would tap on the glass all the time. But where you saw the lion there, I was actually right to the right. If you looked into the window to the right.
Oh yeah, it's the lab that. Is it real or is it not real?
It is totally real.
It is real.
It
Okay.
is. It is.
When they
totally
tapped,
real.
did you turn around and wave?
Sometimes, if it was,
And are you actually feeding animals there, or are you doing other
Well,
experiments?
this is a different room. This is a branch of the nutrition center where they're bringing out and showing. She was talking about the research facility. This is the nutrition center. They have the pellets for the different types of animals. And again, this is just one room that showcases a nutrition center. There's a huge warehouse.
Well, talk about that, because there was some interesting stuff about this nutrition center and how things are done
The
there.
nutrition center is huge. First of all, there's a whole bank. There's this one full wall of the building is nothing but refrigerators and freezers that store all of the meats and produce that is shipped in almost every day. It's a huge amount of food. There's 2 full dedicated teams of interns and a full-time staff that do nothing but prepare food for the animals. And each individual animal has a different diet.
And not each species. You're talking each animal has a specific diet.
There's log books that say animal species number 1, animal B, has this amount of carrots and the other one doesn't. And it's all barcoded, and they scan and they fill the Tupperwares. They send them off to the exhibits, and that's lunch. And then they got to do it all over again for dinner. It's quite a process.
Are the animals just tagged, or are they radio tagged? I mean, how do they...
I don't know how they identify the actual animals themselves. But
This one's Bob. This one's Bill.
I was going to say, do they have names?
I'm assuming they would have chips like your dogs and cats would.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
I know that the smaller ones do, especially that don't have like markings and things like that.
But yeah, the nutrition center is really cool. I mean, it's a gigantic warehouse. Another room inside of it, next to the refrigerators and the food prep area, where they have the meats and produce. There's another giant warehouse that has nothing but grain and hay. And they actually, Disney's Animal Kingdom, about half and half of these pellets are store-bought, and the other half they actually make in-house.
They're grown in the land.
Yeah.
I've heard that speech.
Yeah, they're grown in the land. No, they actually make the pellets themselves. But
I was stunned to find out that meals are prepared for individual animals
yeah,
based on their specific
Certain
needs.
animals have different needs, different diseases, different conditions.
Is this part of what you were doing in terms of checking them to see like what their diet should be? And
No, I never worked on the diet side. That was on the other side of the building. So what I would do is look at the animal samples and measure hormone levels. So
Okay.
in some cases, yeah, we could tell if an animal was healthy based on hormone levels. If they weren't cycling, what's going on? Is there something that we could do to get that animal?
Don't you also find that animals, you've had multiple animals in the house, they have different tastes.
Right.
They have, there's dog foods dogs like, and there's dog foods dogs don't,
well, I would imagine this is more of a particular species probably does well with certain types of food, but then if there are certain issues with one particular animal, they're adjusting the diet.
Exactly.
Right.
to-
Well, even size. I mean, you think you have, younger animals have to have a certain diet, teenage animals, that sort of thing. I mean, all the way through their life cycle.
And just like
House
you would
pets
have to change your food with your dog, you have to do it a little bit at a time. They have to do that kind of
Right,
thing, and each
introduce it
animal's
all the
different.
time.
I mean, if you're going to, even people who take house pets, if you're going to accept the responsibility of the house pet, you kind of have to know what you're doing.
Right.
Well, Disney knows what they're doing.
That's what I meant. It's
that
just,
was
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But it's kind of like exactly what I'm saying. When you're going to accept responsibility for that animal, you have to treat it in the best way for that animal.
Right.
So it's on a bigger scale.
Now, my understanding is that the level of care and attention that Disney gives these animals exceeds pretty much any other place
Absolutely. I
in
mean,
the country that does this.
for one thing, they have the funding for it. Exactly, because a lot of zoos.
It's a wealthy zoo.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. So they do have the funding for it. So, that we can do all those animal behavior studies that other zoos might not have funding for, or, diet nutrition studies, things
The
like
other
that.
thing is, and I don't mean to make light of other zoos, but if Disney had an animal issue, it would be the biggest news of the day.
Right.
Right,
it would
true.
make the news cycle. We joke about in Orlando, Disney's the 400-pound gorilla. Something goes on at Disney, it's all over the news.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I imagine if there was an animal issue, Disney has a big shoe to fill, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
Now, I want to kind of wrap up with affection section, which Pete thinks is a hilarious name for a petting zoo. Disney doesn't.
That's not what Pete used to call it.
There's a bar in Orlando called that, isn't there?
Okay.
Shut up.
Along with their theming, even though Rafiki's Planet Watch isn't necessarily themed like the rest of the park, they don't want to just call this a petting zoo. It's affection section, and this is where you're going to see some of the domesticated
I'd forgotten
animals.
that.
This is where you're going to see some of the domesticated.
off
I'm just going
camera.
to keep going, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. But these aren't just normal domesticated animals. They're different types of species.
Yeah, they're actually what they refer to as rare domestic species. So they're not endangered per se, but they're rare domestic species. So I've listed some of them. You see the Nubian goats, the Katahdin sheep, and Florida native sheep. The goats and sheep are going to be like in areas where you can go right up and
they just wander
and
around.
pet them. They just wander around, and they have brushes that the little kids can take and brush them. And then behind those yellow railings in the back of this particular picture that's on the screen right now are the animals that you can touch if they get close enough, but they're also back so that they don't hurt anybody.
That's the pigs, isn't
The kuni pigs.
Aw.
Yeah, they're super cute. If they're close enough, you can touch them. And they have a cow, and I think they used to have a donkey. I
Yeah,
think
there's
they
a
might
donkey
still
in
have-
there.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's adorable.
Yeah.
Our manger scene is complete. We have a donkey.
I like that we're wrapping up our first part of Overlooked Animal Kingdom with Conservation Station and Affection Section, because I do feel like it is the most overlooked
Oh, no question.
portion of that park, and I think you can learn a lot if you ask the right questions, if you go in with the mindset of wanting to learn something, and not just, if you're not just looking for the thrill rides that day and you want to learn a little bit more, not only about the animals, but about the history of the theme park and how they take care of their animals. I think it's just a wonderful thing to do.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask questions, because the cast that work there are very passionate about what they do and about the animals. So if you find somebody, ask.
Now, you were also saying that people could ask if a procedure was going on. Like, we have a picture of them working on a lion.
A lion getting
What happens is it's usually most days it's 2 procedures in the morning, but you can ask before you even get on the train so you don't disappoint yourself. Just ask the cast member at the train station, are there procedures? And they'll find out for you. But there's usually 2 in the morning. The park typically opens around 9 o'clock, so you'll have them at either 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock is when you're going to.
Yeah, they won't release the schedule a couple days ahead of time. I've had people ask that because just in case an animal doesn't cooperate or something gets, prioritized ahead of it. So they won't let you know what they're doing the next couple of days, but that morning.
Yeah, the day of is when you'll find out.
People actually ask about animal surgery.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
There are, when I worked at the trains, there was regulars, people that I knew on Thursday. This woman's coming here because she's going to come see the surgeries. I guess she was a local. She'd always come to see the animal surgeries. People love it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Most people who go to these parks, obviously, you talked about it, go right for the big rides.
Yeah.
They're going right for the big thrill rides and see the big stuff. What does Disney do to make this other stuff become better known? Because you said a lot of stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Ton of stuff I didn't know. It's obviously their responsibility to tell people this is there. What can they do?
I think what they could do is just have more cast members ready and willing to answer questions. I don't know how. I mean, they can't just put up a placard that tells the story of Animal Kingdom.
One of the things I said to you was that why aren't they doing tours around the park like they do at other parks that, talk about this stuff, take us to these places, show us this stuff.
Didn't they have a tour, Wild by Design?
Yeah.
They have
a tour.
They have a tour
Kathy did it.
that does the backstage of the animal care stuff, but there's no tour that really focuses on the theming, like some of the stuff
I've kind of taken. Yeah, I mean, so much of the stuff that he told me as we walked around that park, was not nothing was backstage. Everything was on stage. But I'm like, okay, why aren't they trumpeting this? This makes this park so much more interesting.
Did you ever read the plaque outside of Pleasure Island? It's like where Pleasure Island and Downtown Disney meet. And they explain to you the story of how Pleasure Island came to be and why there was a fireworks factory there at the time. And if you read that plaque, you just stood there slack-jawed and thought,
It's a lot of backstory.
it's a lot of backstory that you never knew until you read the sign.
Well, even beyond the backstory, just the detail in the theming. That when you talk about where the fortress used to be and how they have the the remnants of the bricks in the pavement, and there are, when we get over to Asia in that area, there are other things you see, little details that very easy to overlook. That
they need like a Keys to the Kingdom tour.
A Keys to the Kingdom, exactly. Some kind of tour, like on stage tour like that. I think would just make the park so much more interesting. If you're not a zoo person, I know that people at Animal Kingdom get their back up when you use the Z word, but for all intents and purposes, it's a really, really, really good zoo. If you're not a zoo person, if you're not a nature person, if you're not an animal person in that regard, this is not going to appeal to you. But when you start bringing in elements like that, when you start talking about the details of the theming and the backstory, it just gives it a whole different feel and a whole different life. That is what I found interesting, and it gave me a new appreciation for the park. It gave me appreciation for the depth and detail that was put into it. And as we'll get into in the second part of this, we'll get into some of the other stuff. But at the end of it, I was saying to myself, I don't think there's another Disney theme park that had this much detail into it.
You think some of it is because something like the Magic Kingdom is so scrutinized and so written about?
I think so too.
And there's so many people who write about every little detail that I don't think there's anything like this for the Animal Kingdom out there.
No, there's not.
I
think there is the level of detail. As John said, I just think it's been much more discussed. I think the fact that we're finding this out makes it seem like,
why didn't we
why
know
isn't
about
Yeah,
it?
why do we know about this?
There are
maybe
people
it sounds like there's more because we didn't know it.
Could be.
Possibly.
But all right, well, thank you both very much. Thank you, Dustin and Holly, for this. As I said, this is the first part of a 2-part series. We're not sure exactly when part 2 is, but it'll be in the next
we'll figure it out.
few weeks. But that will do it for this segment. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next time with another edition of the Diz Unplugged. Thanks for being with us, everyone. And remember, stay out of the damn lakes. And yes, it's not a Mac in front of me.